Okay, next topic is functions. Okay. Functions are a snippet of code that may get used in several places in a program. So a repeatable set of code. And you can call the function and you can get the result from the function back. Okay. So let's look at some examples. And of course, right now we're going to look at really simple examples. And we define a function. Okay. First we'll define a function and then we'll use the function by making a call to it. Okay. The function is defined by the keyword def. Okay. And then you give a name. So say my function, my f, okay? And then you can specify some values that needs to be passed into this function for it to work on. You don't have to, but usually you would want to. Okay, for example, suppose we want this function to add or do some arithmetic computation, right? Some simple computation. And it expects 3 numbers, for example. Okay? So we can specify x comma y comma z. Okay? So this means that when you make a call to this function, you have to supply those 3 values, whatever those 3 values might be. Okay? And then you do the computations, whatever you want. Say, let's say that we want x plus 2 times y plus 3 times z, right? Now you want to send this back to, okay, send this back to the code that made the call. Okay, so we do that by using the keyword return. So you'll do this computation, whatever that result is going to send it back. Okay. Now you don't have to do it this way. You know, you can have any number of lines of code. So the computation that you need may be pretty complex. And then after all those computations, whatever that you get finally, say you saved it as final value. And then you say return final value. Okay. So whatever you want to return back, you put that in a code line that says return, and then you specify what needs to be returned. Okay. So and by the way, you can have several returns depending upon the condition. We'll look at that in just a second. So right now, let's say that's it, okay? Now, if I say my f and then give the 3 numbers that it needs, okay? And then I run it, it gives you the result. So these 3 numbers were fed into this function, and then you did x plus 2 times y plus 3 times z, and then gave it back to you. Okay. Now suppose you had said A equal to that computation, okay, and you didn't have a return. Okay, you can define a function with no return at all. Okay, it's possible. I mean, it's allowed. But when you then run this function, you get nothing because nothing came back, so it gives you nothing. Okay. All right. So if the function needs to give something back, you have to have a return. So if you put it in a variable name like A, then you say return A, then that will work. Okay. Okay. Now you see the function needed 3 numbers, x, y, z. Now if you run the function with just 2 numbers, okay, so it's going to throw an error. It says, okay, well, the function needs 3 numbers and you've given me only 2. So I can't figure this out. Okay. To avoid this kind of situation, normally what people do is have some default numbers. Okay. Again, these default numbers are optional. You don't have to have it. If you don't have optional numbers, and if the user doesn't give the appropriate number of values into the function, you'll have an error. But if you define the function with default values, and if you don't provide sufficient number of values, okay, so it's going to now, the 2 and 5 will override the default values. So x will be set to 2, y will be set to 5. Since you gave nothing for z, the z default value of 3 is used.